Well, good afternoon, District 25 Toastmasters. My name is Jesse Ford. I am your club growth director, and we are excited that you are joining us today. Today, we have a very special treat for y'all. We have Club Success Workshop number 3 this year with our very own, what is it? The Club Retention Chair. That's right. We're going to talk today all about club coaches and their experiences. That's why we called this the Club Coach Experience. No pun intended on Jimi Hendrix, but you know, all the good things come. But we are excited that you joined us today, and we promise you will probably learn something. Hopefully, you'll figure out, hey, I can be a coach after this because we want everybody to take advantage. Clubs, if you have questions about being a coach or need one, you can also reach out to us afterwards, and we'll see what we can do to make all that happen for everybody. But let's not just keep listening to this guy talk, because the real show today is going to be from our club retention chair, Alex Conrad. Alex, welcome. The lectern is yours.
Well, thank you, Jesse. Thank you. Well, let's get right into it. And let's introduce our panel today. Club Coach Experience Panel. I want to start off with Brenda Daniels. She has been in Toastmasters for 30-something years. She's been the majority of her time with Afterburners, and I'd like to have her tell us her education level, where she coached, what club she coached, and how long were you a Toastmaster before you became a coach? Brenda Daniels.
Thanks, Alex. I am a DTM squared, which just means that I have 2. I actually should have 3, but I never registered that 3rd one. I'm sorry, my chihuahuas decided to bark.
All right.
I am in Afterburners, have been for over 30 years. I did club coach 2 or 3 times, but my most memorable experience was with the club in Granbury, Texas.
All right.
About 35 miles southwest of Fort Worth. And I probably did my club coach times during the first 10 years of my membership.
All right. Thank you. Well, our next panelist is Mary Lee Mims. She's been in Toastmasters for at least 20 years. So let's hear about Mary Lee, her education level, the club that she coached, and how long were you in Toastmasters before you became a coach?
Okay, thanks, Alex. Actually, I've been in Toastmasters almost 18 years. I'm not quite to the 20-year mark, but that's okay.
I'm trying to get you there.
All right. Well, I'll still be here. I'll tell you that. And I do have multiple DTMs, which is a good thing when you've been in this organization for a long time. I actually have coached 3 clubs. I coached, do you want to know the names of them?
Up to you.
Okay, well, I coached Golden Triangle Toastmasters. I coached Circle of Excellence, and most recently, Strategic Communicators. They were all 3 different but exciting experiences. I was in Toastmasters about 7 years before I did my first coaching term. I think I answered all your questions, Alex, on that one, so I'll hand it back.
Thank you, Mary Lee. Now let's ask Donna Young to come on camera. And Donna, you've been around for quite a while. Let's hear your education level.
Well, I am a DTM. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody help me. I have been in Toastmasters since 2012. And I just started this past year, sometime, I guess in the past 12 months, maybe something as a coach for Tarrant County Toastmasters.
All right. Yay. All right. Very good. So you were in it for what, 9 years before you became a coach?
Oh, actually close to 10, I think. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. All three of you ladies have been an inspiration to me in one way or the other in your Toastmaster career. Mary Lee, I met you at my first TLI that I went to at Texas Wesleyan, and you helped me feel at ease being there when I felt very neophyte Toastmaster and was just going, what am I doing here? I turned around and helped you with putting stuff in your car and taking it back out and whatnot. Brenda, I've helped you get stuff out in and out at conferences, and I enjoy your conversation about past conferences and your experiences through Toastmasters. It enlightens me. It helps me want to be a better Toastmaster. Donna, we had a long conversation for about 2 hours one way and 2 hours the other way when we were going out to judge a contest out in Abilene. So we got to know each other quite a bit. Plus, I feel like that I gave you some insight on bringing your two clubs together and you stepping up and being your president in your club. So, hey, that we all have some experiences together. But I'm going to get into our questions. And I'm going to ask Brenda, I'm going to ask you, what was your favorite part of being a club coach?
That's an easy answer because my favorite part of Toastmasters, period, is meeting the people, having interaction with the club members, the club officers, doing all the district events. So when you go into a club to be a club coach, you're there for those people, and they're the most important part. If you don't have members, you don't have a club. So the people are my favorite part of being a club coach.
Thank you, Brenda. Mary Lee,
Well,
what was your favorite part of being a club coach?
I'm going to piggyback on what Brenda said, because I do think our members are so important. But what I got the most joy out of is watching how they finally understood what I was trying to help them when they would grab that vision of where their club could be and how they could grow. And I could see them progressing and getting that self-confidence that they could be successful at what they were trying to do. I loved that part.
Well, thank you, Mary Lee. And Donna, what was your favorite part of being a club coach?
Well, I'm not done being a club coach. They're not distinguished yet. They have to add a few more members. So I think I'm still in the process. But what I'm finding is that the words of wisdom they give us when we do speech evaluations.
Okay.
First time somebody does an icebreaker, you can tell them lots of stuff because they're not scared of talking. They're already pretty experienced. They just kind of have to help them put the bells and whistles on. And other members are very shy, and it takes them forever to schedule their first icebreaker because they don't have confidence.
What's that?
And tuning the message
to
to all the people, tuning the message to the club today, you have to tune it for each person in the club, because some of them just aren't ready to hear certain types of instruction. And discovering what's going to trigger this person or that person, this officer, that officer. It's kind of fun.
It's always good to learn new things about somebody and also to watch them grow. All right, so what was the hardest part of being a club coach? Now, Donna, I know that you are still doing it, but still the fact remains, as you are progressing through your experience of being a club coach, how do you feel? What do you feel is the hardest part of it, being a club coach?
I think that all the members and officers are pretty exemplary individuals as individual contributors. So once they're at the meeting and say, hey, can you be timer? They do a great job at it. Hey, can you help set up? Hey, they do a great job of it. Or can you consistently set up the Zoom link? Now, I've got one guy, he says, listen, I got to work, but I've got 5 minutes. I can set it up. But the first person that gets on the Zoom link, I'm going to make them host because I have to go, get back to work. But the thing is, they're willing. So that's the best part, because they're all willing. The hardest is sometimes they forget they're a team. Getting them to actually meet as an executive council outside the meeting.
Okay.
But getting them to actually meet outside the meeting, that's actually to do some planning together. They haven't quite cottoned on to that one yet.
Okay. I can relate. I can relate to that. There are some people that just have a hard time getting together outside the club. Well, Mary Lee, what was your hardest part of being a club coach?
I think one of the hardest things when you go in, you're going in as a club coach, or you should go in with an unbiased mindset as to you're looking at the club, you're seeing how they're operating, especially when you go in as a club coach for a long time club where they're pretty set in their ways. And I found it a bit of a challenge with one of my clubs to get them to alter some of their habits. And I say alter it so that the habits are more beneficial for putting on a very effective club meeting. Because after all, our club meeting is our product. And if you can get the membership to consistently run a good, strong meeting, you're most likely going to get some new members. So I would say one of the biggest challenges I had was to get them to realize how important it was to run a really strong and effective meeting every single meeting, and to keep their enthusiasm up. It's hard when you're a small numbered club and you're doing all the jobs all the time. So you want that enthusiasm all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I understand. Well, thank you, Mary Lee. Brenda, what's that hardest part of being a club coach?
When you're a club coach, you learn patience because this club has asked for help, so they want help, but they may not want it at the same speed that you want it as the club coach. And that's where you have to be totally aware of the amount of time and effort that it's going to take to bring this club to where they want to be. And you have to understand that it may not happen at your speed, and you may have to adjust your mindset after you learn what this club is and how they want to be successful. So you learn patience being a club coach. If you don't have it when you start, I can guarantee you're going to have it when you're done.
So that's a good thing. That this being a club coach is also going to give you that experience of having patience.
Oh,
I've been
yeah.
told that I have patience. Sometimes I don't feel like I have patience, but I can understand where you're coming from. You do need to have patience. Very
I see
good.
that
Thank you.
Phyllis is grinning. She understands that.
Well, Mary Lee, how long did it take you to achieve your club coach credit? It doesn't matter. You say that you've been in multiple, just pick one. Or was it all the same? Whatever.
Actually, no, it wasn't. And I think that this is a good example of what's involved. One of my clubs, I did it within the first assignment within about 7 months.
Okay.
The other one took me probably a whole Toastmasters year. The third one, I was there the full 2 years, the assignment. And then I was reassigned. International said, would you please stay with them? So I was with them just about 4 years, but we made it. So
that's a good question. That's a thought that I'm going to bring up. Okay. So after your 2 years was up, technically you're done. But International asked you to stay on for a while longer to get them distinguished, correct?
yes, but
Okay.
when I read the new module, and I just want to point this out so anyone reading it will look, my understanding was now that there definitely has to be communication between the district and International to get you reassigned if you want to be reassigned.
Right. Okay. That's okay. Thank you.
You're
No,
welcome.
that's a very good point that we need to talk about. Donna, well, you haven't gotten it yet. How long have you been doing it?
Well, I officially started as a club coach, I think November of 2021.
Okay.
But I'm the division director since 2020 and some clubs you just drop in and visit because they always need somebody with a pocket speech. They always need someone to fill an open role. So I did that. In fact,
Okay.
I don't think they would have been meeting if I hadn't dropped in because they couldn't decide where they were going to meet. COVID, could they get into their thing? I said, why don't we just do Zoom? I have a Zoom account. Let's dial in tomorrow at noon. And they go, oh, I don't know if I can make that. I go, okay, we're holding a meeting right now, an all table topics meeting. Who's going to kick it off? And they did.
I like that.
And so we had a 25-minute full Toastmaster meeting, only table topics. They go, oh, we can do this on Zoom. I go, yeah.
See?
So
Encouraging.
even before I was a club coach, I kind of did a little bit of coaching.
You were coaching before then. There you go. All right. All right, Brenda. How long did it take you to achieve your your club coach credit?
With Granbury, that club, the most memorable one, it was well over a year. And I lived in Haltom City. And so for me to go every week was over 80 miles round trip. But I did it for over a year. And the other two, there was another one that I did just briefly because they decided that they didn't want to put the effort in to be saved. They didn't want to be saved. And they made that decision, and I did not agree with the decision, but it was their decision because it's their club. So that one was less than 6 months.
Okay.
And it takes work to bring a club who's asked for a club coach to meet the minimum requirement. That is going to take time in most of the clubs. So you can't go in with a preset mindset. I'm going to do this for 6 months. That's where you have to be responsive to what the club wants. It's not what you want, it's what they want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can understand that. All right, Brenda. What was one thing you learned about yourself being a club coach? Now you're still being a club coach.
Well,
but you're always being a club coach because once you learn what you need to do, you're still teaching and you're still trying to get people to do things. So Brenda, What was the one thing you learned about being a club coach?
Well, I'm going to refer back to one of my first comments about patience and being receptive to something that's probably not your idea. It's their idea. And if that's the way they want to work it, then that's what you need to do. You need to make. There was one gentleman that thought that I was just going to come in there and tell them everything that they needed to be doing, and we were going to snap our fingers and it was going to get done in a few weeks. And he didn't understand the time commitment that it was going to take. And it wasn't my schedule, it was their schedule. So I have to say that being a club coach is going to teach you patience.
Okay. Mary Lee, I'm going to change the question up just slightly. What is the one thing you learned about yourself in being a club coach?
That it's okay that I'm normally naturally an enthusiastic person. And in the club coach role, I decided that it was okay that I could be enthusiastic about Toastmasters and all that Toastmasters knowledge that I have up here from all those years in district leadership really came in handy, because the clubs quite often don't know all the different rules and the best ways to do things and the best descriptions of jobs. So I found I didn't need to be shy about letting that knowledge out and do it with great enthusiasm and caring for that club.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, we do need to be enthusiastic, don't we? Donna, I know you're still doing it, but what have you learned about yourself up to this point about being a club coach?
I've got more knowledge in my head than I can get out in a given period of time. And I have to self-censor a lot and target the message, not to the club, but to the individuals.
Mm.
So there might be a great strategy on how to do the room setup when you've got a hybrid meeting.
Okay.
But not everybody can understand the nuances. So it's kind of like, if you want to, you have to introduce the concept to someone you know can probably handle it. Just if there's 5 things to do, introduce one thing to the person that you know can handle and say, what do you think? If they try it and they introduce it, it'll go over. So it's kind of like inspiring one person at a time. I mean, let's face it, to run a hybrid meeting in the Kornfeld room where Afterburners meets, it shouldn't be hard for another club to be able to do it at noon on the same place at the same location. But we're not always 100% successful. So there's about 5 components, and it's like you only have to get 3 of them right to make everybody happy every week. They don't have to be the same 3 things. But you have to have at least 3 people that know how to do at least those 3 things. And it happens. You have to have backup. You can't rely on just the SAA to set up a room. You have to have 3 people that know how to do it.
That's true, especially when it's a hybrid.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that
but
was
I
it.
do
Focus
like
on, yeah.
I do like what you were saying, is that if you can get them to think that it's their idea, it's going to go over with the rest of the club. I love that idea. I love that. Well, Brenda, I'm going to ask you the one thing that you learned about yourself about being a club coach. Unmute yourself.
I was
There we go.
thinking, I was thinking. We are all what we are in life is the result of everything that has happened to us in life. And being a preacher's kid, my dad was a minister, and we moved around a lot, and I had to meet new people a lot because every 2 to 3 years we moved. And we didn't just move across town from one church to another, we moved like state to state. When I was 16, we moved to Texas in 1963, and I didn't want to come to Texas. I did not
Thank you.
want.
Thank you for being here, though.
I thought that everybody in Texas had cows and a oil well in their yard. So I thought that I knew how to be a servant leader. And I found out in Toastmasters down through the years that I still had a lot to learn about being a servant leader. And that's what you are when you take on the responsibility of club coach, is you have to be a servant leader to that group of people and impart your knowledge. And I found out that just because I thought that I knew about being a servant leader didn't necessarily mean that I did. And so that was one of the lessons that I learned from being a club coach.
I fully understand that, because each one of us are a servant leader when we help the district. No, help the members grow, because that's what we're here for. We're here to help the members grow, because if we help them, guess what? We all grow.
That's right. I agree 100%.
There you go. Donna, why did you want to be a club coach? Now, we all understand that part of being a club coach is to get your DTM. But other than that, I mean, you do have a choice between one or two things to do. So why did you pick being a club coach other than getting your DTM? We need to hear you.
I think because a lot of our clubs are quite diverse in terms of age, in terms of profession, in terms of where people come from. Like for some people, English isn't their first language. And being successful in Toastmasters is one of the great equalizers. And hey, it's kind of American. We want to be equal, you know. So if the club succeeds, the members can do things they mightn't do otherwise. And, you know, I'm a techie, I'm a nerd, you know. And I've seen people that were real smart, but didn't know how to have a dramatic pause like I can have a dramatic pause. They weren't expressive like me. Like, I grab people's attention, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Are my ideas better than someone else's? No, but I'm real good at grabbing your attention and holding it. And so being able to express yourself, which is what people learn in Toastmasters, is an equalizer, because suddenly people who have great ideas, they're going to be able to hold forth on an equal footing with me. How much, you know, how much my success is my big brain? Oh, I'm sure all of it is, but a lot of it is also my manners, you know, or lack thereof, you know, the fact that I'm just gonna in your face. And some of those techniques can be learned. So that I think that's why I wanted to do it, because it is the great equalizer.
Well, thank you. Yes, I hear you. That's good. So Mary Lee, why did you want to become a club coach?
Well, Alex, I'm glad you asked me that, because when I stepped into the first club meeting where I later became a coach at that club, I didn't go because I wanted to be a coach. I went because one of the gals that sits next to me in my church choir was talking about she was in Toastmasters and her club was struggling. They were having trouble, and we talked about it for probably a month. And finally I said, gee, could I come and visit? And so I went a couple of times, and I could see they wanted to succeed, but they were just kind of stuck in their ways. Some of the things, they couldn't get new members. And that was about the time I was learning about the club coach program. And so they were open to having a club coach, and they were open to having me if the district would assign me. And so that's how I went, was really originally to help my friend, but then I wanted to help the people in that club because they were just lovely people. And of course, like every club so many of us visit, we form personal relationships. And there we go with that.
Right back to the servant leader.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. I love that. There you go. All right. It wasn't about your DTM. It was about being a servant leader.
Yeah.
I like that. Brenda,
Yes, sir.
why did you want to be a club coach 3 times over? 4 times? 4, 2?
Well,
What?
I think I've been 3 times.
Okay.
I have to say that when you join Toastmasters, when we have new people that come in, you have a spirit of enthusiasm, wanting to do stuff to improve not just yourself, but others. And it took me 7 years to get my first DTM, and it took me 16 years to get my second one.
Okay.
So credit for a DTM was not the ruling factor for me. When I came into Toastmasters, I found out that this was something that I could do for me. I didn't have to do it for other people. But then I began to learn that my growth in Toastmasters is when I help other people.
Mm-hmm.
And to this
I
day
love
and
that.
age, if you're in a club, when your members succeed, your club is going to succeed. And if you've got a struggling club, which is what the entire reason for volunteering or being voluntold to be a club coach is, you want to help them succeed. You want to show them how to find their way to their success. And so it wasn't just I needed credit for a DTM because I wasn't that speedy with getting mine, but it was watching those club members, watching the light bulb come on when they realized, oh, this is what we can be doing. This is how we can bring in new members. This is how we can be attractive to new people coming in the club, and we can build our club up.
Very good. Thank you.
Hope that's enough.
Oh, yes. So I have another question here. Now, this is more of a yes or a no. Have you been in contact through the years? So this is for the 2 of you. Through the years with the past the members of those clubs that you coached. Marilee?
Yes.
Brenda?
There was a insurance agent in the Granbury Club, and he and I have been in insurance associations down through the years together. And we always talk about the Toastmaster experience,
Okay.
not just insurance. So, and his daughter, he brought his daughter along in the insurance industry. So I've known her for quite a number of years, and now she's the agency principal because he's retired.
I've got one more question for each one of you. I had asked you all to send me a list of questions, and now I've gone through that list of questions, and now I'm going to ask you one of those questions. So Brenda, will you put in there, will you be able to recognize the signs of your efforts are not bringing the results necessary for the club to survive?
Yes, I did tell you that question.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say, what I'm asking, what you were asking me, what I'm asking you is, how are you going to tell people how they're going to know whether or not to recognize that they are going to be able to know their club is or is not going to survive?
Not everybody in a club that asks for a club coach has the same attitude about where they want that club to be in 5 months, 6 months, a year. So there's different visions in a club. And as a club coach, you need to recognize what those visions are. You're always going to have your core membership that's going to fight to keep that club active. But then you're going to have those people on the fringe that they don't care one way or the other. And then you're going to have maybe one or two that could care less. And so through this period of time that you're there, there's times that you would have to be brutally honest. Okay, where do we see this going? And it's their response to that question as to whether that club is going to survive or not. And I know that's a negative thought, but that is a truthful thought. Some clubs just don't want to be saved.
And we talked
They don't want
about,
to put the effort together to be saved.
we touched on that earlier. There are some that just don't want to be part of that. Mary Lee, one of your questions was, what have you found to be effective strategies for empowering members and building enthusiasm within the club?
Okay. Well, there are several things that I have used when I've gone into clubs. And that is just as make sure, like I said earlier, the club meeting is, that's your product and you want it to be good. But I have found in 2 out of the 3 clubs that I coached that people often need to know how you fill a role in the most effective way. So I found it very helpful after the roles had been assigned. I always said, please assign them ahead of time, at least a week ahead of time, or if it's a weekly club or a monthly club. But then I would send emails to the person who was the Toastmaster, to the person who was table topics master. And I'd say, this is Mary Lee's vision of, or not vision, this is Mary Lee's explanation of what a Toastmaster's duties are. And I'd give bullet points. Or with table topics, I'd say, stand up, give the rules very quickly, ask the question. I would give them a format of what they could do. I would even give them, when they were newer members, I'd let them know the first time they were serving a role, I'd say, they're going to call on you as vote counter at the beginning of the meeting. Say something to describe your role, such as, for example, and I'd give them a sentence. And I know that theoretically, the VP education of that club should be doing that, or the VP membership, but often they are not. And I found when I started doing that, I got so many thank yous from those club members for doing that, because they said, we kind of forgot how to do it. And then I usually would follow up with a personal email after the meeting and say, you did great, just encouraging them. And they would feel empowered then for the next time. And there again, that word enthusiasm. Enthusiasm, when you're empowered, is contagious.
I love that. I love that. Just letting them know what they need to do, what roles are expected, how to describe the roles. Donna, I put down here a question that you asked, which was, what do you what do you do when the club does not want to use true and tried success methods, like holding an open house? But I'm going, wait a minute, we've already answered that question. So I'm going to pick a different one, unless you want to answer that one. Here's a simple question, though. Can a club coach give too much information
Oh, yeah, yeah.
or
Yeah.
too much advice?
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
say it that way.
You know
Can a
me,
club
don't
coach do
you?
that?
I have an answer for everything. You know, I'm IT. We know everything. We can solve any problem. Of course. Absolutely. I'm the perfect example of information. And I do it too fast and too often. And Phyllis is laughing in the background. I I have a home club that was in the position that Marilee described, where the VP Ed didn't instruct people on how to do anything. And I think the clubs that I visited quite often before I became a club coach suffered from that also.
Okay.
So I have a series of pre-formatted emails that are only about 4 lines long.
Mhm.
Says, in case you need a helper, in case you need a cheat sheet, and I'll have like links to 2 3-minute videos from Toastmasters 2, like for timer, one that just says, tells the exact count of every single and and another one that just kind of goes, well, we did really well today. I think our favorite crutch word is, you know, the 2 extremes. So I've got a script, I've got a cheat sheet, I've got videos, and depending on the person, I'll send that out.
Okay, very
But
good.
I think the place where you can give too much information is when they ask for feedback, because let's face it, I can generate a laundry list.
We all can generate a lot.
So it's like,
Thank
yeah, just okay. It's like, okay, let me pick the one thing I think they can handle this week.
too much information. Yes. If you give them too much feedback, they get lost in what's going on. Yes. At this time, I want to thank all 3 of you ladies for answering my questions. But what I'd like to do now is to ask the audience what questions that they may have. Do you have any questions out there in audience land?
Hi, Alex. I did put one in the chat, and my question was, so what's the strategy when a club doesn't want to be saved?
Good question. Who would you like to ask that to?
Brenda.
Okay, Brenda.
Thanks, Phyllis. I saw that question in the chat and I knew that you were going to pick me. I've made this statement over and over and over again. We are a communication organization, and sometimes we don't communicate. And that's the key, having open, frank discussions when it appears that that club has some issues with whether they want to be saved or not. And I know that we're supposed to be positive all the time and give positive feedback and good evaluations and things like that. But you have to let that club find their own way. And if their own way is to disillusion, that's a hard thing. That's a hard decision to make. Now, that Granbury Club that I worked with for well over a year, we were successful in saving the club. But within a year, it did dissolve. And a few weeks ago, or a few days ago, I saw on the District 25 bulletin board that there's interest in Granbury again. That would be great. And I'm hoping that some of those members from years past will see whatever we're going to do and come. But you have to be able to communicate. And sometimes all the communication is not yay, yay, positive, let's do this. Sometimes the communication is, we're at a crossroads here. Are we going to go left or are we going to go right? So communication, talking and getting that feedback from them. I had one member just look at me and say, I'm tired of trying to save this. Aren't you tired of trying to save this?
Okay.
I hope that answered your question, Phyllis.
It did, thank you.
What other questions do we have?
So I have a question. Is it possible there's some geographic regions that, given the nature of the, I guess, that people live in the area, that really just not sustainable to have really a Toastmasters club? You know, Brenda, we've been talking here about Granbury. I've been trying to revive life back in the club in Denton, and I know there was 2 other clubs in Denton that over the years have fallen apart, have been dissolved. And the one I'm trying to help, they're at this point, they were down to 2 members. Now they're back up to 5 or 6. And whether they'll make it, I don't know. But I'm just wondering if some areas it's not practical to have a club. It's just because it's not the mindset of people in the community to really support a club.
So your question would be directed to?
I guess probably Brenda, since she's been wrestling with
And then
Granbury,
what-
but I also would be curious to hear Donna's ideas because I'm sure she's got plenty to say.
So what is the question? Let's clarify
Well,
the question. The main question is
it possible? Is it could be conceivable that although we want these clubs to survive, we want to create more clubs, that there are really pockets in town that you really can't have a club because of the nature of the demographics of the population. Is that, you agree with that, or you think I'm crazy?
Donna, you want to take that on?
I
think she should.
I find it interesting that you say the demographics. And I think that there are demographics, but I don't think it's geographic. Well, it's a little bit geographic. Like, you know, I could probably find a club in Dallas, Texas, where they all have my Yankee accent, and I'd feel so at home. You know what I mean? But the fact is, I don't think it's the geography. I think it can be the 1 or 2 key leaders. There's a certain inertia, and I think that's what Mary Lee mentioned, where people are set in their ways. They always do things the same way. Well, that's fine as long as you always have the same people and they're always happy with the way you're doing it. But part of our goal is to attract new members. In theory, the goal of the way DCP is set up to add 4 members and 4 more members, the reason they do that is because the normal attrition rate is about 40% every year in most clubs. So you have to bring in new members, and you bring in new members, new voices. They may not be 100% in sync with the inertia that's already in the club, the topics that the club discusses. For example, I visited a lot of clubs. Visited clubs as division director. I loved the clubs I visited. I loved every club I visited. But I'd be much happier if I never, ever heard the table topics question, what's your favorite season? If I never heard that one again, I'd be very happy. So the thing is, for some people, the fact that there's clubs that always do that and ask those simple questions, that could turn them off. They may not be able to recruit new members, especially when the people that are coming are young people under 30, that, you know, something like that. So the question is it geography, or are people stuck in a rut where new members don't want to join in? I was at another club recently that I visited where somebody talked and espoused the glories of drag queens. There are some parts of Texas where people might not really enjoy attending that particular meeting with that particular speaker, giving their 5 to 7 minute speech on that topic. So is it the geography or is it the inertia that's in that club? Because it's not, I can tell you, these clubs, the two I'm talking about, they're real close to each other. They're in the same geography, but they have a different culture. And it's not that one's successful or unsuccessful or anything like that. It's just when you have a new member come in, are they going to feel comfortable there? Is it the geography? Or is it the inertia of the club culture? I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Jim, did you get your question answered?
I don't know. I just feel that maybe some clubs that whatever keeps them alive is they have 1 or 2 strong personalities that keep them going. Others are just hanging on. And if one of those 2 strong personalities leave, the club is bound to fail because those others are just for their own personal agenda.
And that's what it is. Mary Lee, it looks like you were getting ready, wanting to answer. So I'm gonna let you jump in here and say something.
I'd like to just add something, Jim, and I'm adding this from historical perspective of having been in the district for a long time and visiting many of the clubs, at least in District 25, that's my only experience. Clubs that are in certain types of venues, for example, some of the ones we've had at universities or at churches, sometimes corporate clubs as well. They are strong when they start out, but especially the university clubs, if they're just limited to students, the students come, they love it, and then they graduate. So if they don't have a constant influx of new students, they can flounder. So in that case, a club would have to change who they're open to and who their target market is to hopefully keep going. In some of the other I'm thinking of one corporate situation where they had a real strong core, the company was supporting them, but then the people that helped get the club charter after a year, one was laid off, one moved on, no one else wanted to take on the responsibility. And the HR people that were funding it just said, this is it, we're not going to do it. It was the year I was club growth director and they were going to renew. And when I called back to get their payment, they said, oh, sorry, we changed our mind. So to sum that up is, I think part of the problem you're asking about, say in that geographical area, may be the venues where those clubs could have had something to do with it.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Tammy,
Sure.
let's hear from you.
I appreciate everyone's feedback. I've taken notes and I could definitely use all of this advice because, of course, I'm attending because I would like to be a club coach. My questions are somewhat basic in that I understand the process that clubs need to be approved for a coach. And I'm curious, how long does this process take? Is TI very responsive? If you've done everything that the process of a club saying, yes, we want a coach, and that gets submitted to TI, what does that time frame look like?
Donna, how long did it take for you to get your response once you put your information in?
Well, they seem to modify the procedure and process about every year and a half. But I mean, within a week, you heard,
Okay,
it's
so
like,
yours
did they
was
have
a
a backlog? Yeah.
Mary Lee, how long did it take for you to get your response? I know you did it 3 times, but just as an average.
Let's say a week to 2 weeks, maybe.
And Brenda, for you?
Probably a week to 2 weeks. The process has changed down through the years.
Yeah.
And
Everything
when I
changes.
first became a club coach, the district appointed me and told International, hey, she's going to be a club coach. And there wasn't, a lot of TI has to approve you or anything like that. So the process has changed down through the years. And we all know that in the last year with this computer conversion at TI, that has really affected how we do administrative things. So
Absolutely.
I think we're coming out on the other side of it maybe now, but International really wants to do things in a timely manner. They've never been one to say, we're just going to drag our feet on it. So as long as we do our homework, they should be able to get their homework done.
Thank you, Brenda, Mary Lee, Donna, for those answers. Did that answer your question, Tammy?
Yes. Now, my
Thank
next
you.
question would be, is there a time that a club was not approved by TI where they said no?
Oh, in other words, what would cause it for them to say that you would not approved?
Yeah.
A quick answer, Brenda, a quick answer.
Oh, I have no idea on that
Okay,
one.
Mary
I
Lee?
can't imagine.
If you were a member of that club, if you were a current member of that club, they would not approve it.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. Donna?
If their membership went up above 12 while you were in the process of asking to be a member, coach.
Okay.
Ladies, I want to thank you very much. Audience, I would thank you for being here today. Thank you for being here. Thank all of you for attending. I want to thank all the future people in the future that watch this and get some knowledge from it. I'm always here, whether I am the club retention chair or not, to help you in your answers to your questions about being a club coach. I feel like that would be across the board with all of us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If there's not any questions, I'm going to, we got one more, all right?
I think we should give a round of applause to Alex because my personal home club was going to go belly up. And I talked to him about it because he was my division director. Donna, why don't you just ask for a club coach? And we talked about it. We talked. He says, Donna, why don't you ask for a club coach? And he talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. He said, Donna, why don't you ask for a club coach? Finally, I asked for a club coach and my club is still alive. So
And
round of
you're
applause
welcome.
to Alex.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Well,
Thank you,
with
Alex.
that, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned in Toastmasters fashion. And thank you for all of you being here and attending.